The Brexit negotiations will commence this Wednesday, and the British Prime Minister Theresa May will be hoping that her commanding lead for the Conservative Party, shown by opinion polls, will put her in a stronger position. Peter Dixon of Commerzbank is here with me now for more analysis on what to expect in terms of market reaction. Hello to you, Peter. Thank you for joining us today. So, May currently has only a slim working majority of about a dozen MPs, and it is expected that she'll gain far more post June the 8th, and that's why we witnessed sterling skyrocket in response initially. How might this change the Brexit negotiations at all?
Well, I mean, I think the markets are taking the view that if Mrs May has a much wider majority, she'll be in a position to push for maybe a slightly less hard Brexit than she has done so far. The thinking is, of course, that she's being pushed by the right wing of her party to take a hard stance at the moment. I'm not actually sure that will necessarily be how things pan out in the event that she gets this wider majority, because I think the markets may be mistaking Mrs May's position. I mean, I rather suspect that she actually believes that a hard Brexit is in the UK's interest, or certainly in her interest, or the party's interest. And I'm not entirely sure that she will change her rhetoric or her tone after the election. And as a consequence, I rather suspect that sterling may be setting itself up for a more dramatic decline, to at least reverse a large chunk of the gains we've seen over the course of the past week.
Do you think that the hard Brexit then, whereby the UK leaves the EU single market and the customs union, has already been discounted by the market then?
I'm not sure it has. I mean, I think the markets are still assuming that some kind of favourable deal can be achieved, and I think that's why sterling gained such ground last week. I think that the worst case scenarios clearly are not priced in. I mean, I think a hard Brexit scenario with cable around 120 certainly would be priced in, but significantly above 125, 126, which is where we are now. I think the markets are backtracking on that view at the moment, which is why, as I said, I think there is a potential for more disappointment.
In terms of disappointment, in terms of movement and numbers, what do you think that will play out into the markets?
Very hard to say, because I think what will happen over the course of the next, well, let's say 15 to 18 months is a drip feed of information from both sides of the channel. And as a consequence, I don't think it's going to be easy to put a final number on where the market is going to be. I rather think we're going to be in for a period of extreme volatility, certainly with regards to sterling. Anywhere between, say, 120 and just above 130 on cable would be the range I'm looking at, which is not significantly different from what we've seen since June or July. But trying to pin exactly where sterling will be within that range at any particular point in time is almost becoming an impossible task.
And how does this compare with what's happening in France? Because presumably, if Marine Le Pen if she is successful, I mean, it looks like she's not going to be, but she's still in the running, clearly, that puts Theresa May in a stronger position.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think if Marine Le Pen were to win the French presidential election, then the whole complexion of the Brexit negotiations changes. I think under those circumstances, we'll stop talking so much about a hard Brexit versus a soft Brexit. And of course, I would expect sterling to gain commensurately with that and, go way above the ranges I talked about earlier. But as you said, that is not the scenario that the markets are working on at the moment. We saw yesterday's French market reaction suggesting that they are heavily discounting Macron presidency. And if that turns out to be the case in just under 2 weeks' time, then we will be talking about hard Brexit again.
And that's exactly why we've seen the euro skyrocket.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think the problem with a Le Pen presidency is that the markets fear that this could lead to some kind of Frexit. I don't actually think it will in the long term, because, I mean, I don't think Marine Le Pen can deliver on French departure from the single currency, or certainly not from the EU. But nonetheless, the markets are going to worry about it. And if she narrows the gap in the polls to Monsieur Macron, or even if he ends up with a fairly narrow victory during the course of the final round of the French presidential election, this concern that nationalist issues are still going to be on the agenda will remain in the markets, and I think as a consequence the euro could certainly suffer from that.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much indeed. Talking about Brexit to Frexit today, so thank you for your time and thank you for watching.